Why?
Human.
Picture it. Tomorrow morning you wake up and you decide that's it. No more sugar. Not in your coffee, not in your snacks, not hidden in the sauces, breads, and condiments you don't even think of as sweet. Completely gone, starting today, no exceptions, no cheat days. Here's what nobody tells you before you make that decision. The first few days aren't going to feel like willpower. They're going to feel like withdrawal. Real, measurable, biological withdrawal with actual physical symptoms you can track. And understanding why reveals something uncomfortable about how deeply sugar has rewired your brain, quietly, over years, without you ever consciously agreeing to it. Let's start with what sugar actually does the moment it hits your system. When you eat something sweet, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurotransmitter involved in essentially every reward your brain tracks, from a good meal to social approval to, yes, certain drugs. Neuroscientist Nicole Avena, who has spent years studying sugar's effects on the brain at Mount Sinai, has shown in animal studies that sugar triggers dopamine release in the nucleus accumbens, the brain's core reward center, in a pattern strikingly similar to certain addictive substances. Not identical in intensity, but similar enough in mechanism that your brain doesn't clearly distinguish between "that was a nice treat" and "give me more of that immediately." This matters because dopamine isn't really about pleasure itself, even though that's how most people think of it. It's about wanting, about anticipation, about a prediction system constantly calculating what to seek out next. Every time you eat sugar, you're not just enjoying a passing moment, you're training that prediction system in your brain to expect more of it, and to notice, quite aggressively, whenever it's missing from your day. So what actually happens if you cut it off completely, starting tomorrow? Day one is deceptively easy for most people. You feel a little off, maybe slightly foggy, a bit more tired than usual, reaching for the afternoon slump, but nothing dramatic yet. Mostly because your body still has glycogen reserves stored in your liver and muscles to draw from, and your blood sugar hasn't fully adjusted to the sudden absence of a substance it was processing multiple times throughout an ordinary day. By day 2 and 3, things shift noticeably. Many people report headaches, irritability, and a kind of restless, almost anxious craving that feels wildly disproportionate to something as simple as skipping dessert. This isn't your imagination, and it isn't weakness. Blood sugar regulation research shows that habitual high sugar intake trains your body to expect frequent glucose spikes throughout the day, and abruptly removing them can cause your blood sugar to dip lower than your normal baseline, triggering the release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline as your body scrambles to stabilize an internal system it built around regular sugar input. You're not failing at self-control. You're chemically reacting to an actual physiological gap your body wasn't expecting. Sleep gets stranger too, in ways that surprise most people who try this. Some studies on sugar reduction report disrupted sleep in the first week, likely tied to the same blood sugar swings interfering with the hormonal signals your body uses to regulate rest and wakefulness. You might find yourself waking up at 3 a.m., wide awake, heart slightly racing, for no reason you can immediately point to. Around day 4 or 5, most people hit what researchers sometimes informally call the wall. Cravings peak here, not because you're low on willpower, but because this is roughly when your dopamine receptors, having been recalibrated by regular sugar intake, are most acutely registering its absence. Your brain, quite literally, is asking where its expected reward went. Here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. Brain imaging studies on sugar and processed food cravings have found activation patterns in the same regions implicated in nicotine and even certain drug cravings, specifically areas tied to anticipation and reward seeking. This doesn't mean sugar is identical to a hard drug. It means your brain's craving machinery doesn't neatly separate healthy pleasure from unhealthy compulsion. It just responds to whatever reliably delivered dopamine in the past and demands it back. By around week 2, something remarkable starts happening if you push through. Your taste perception actually changes. Researchers studying sugar reduction have found that taste buds adapt within roughly 2 weeks, becoming measurably more sensitive to sweetness. Foods that once seemed only mildly sweet, a plain apple, unsweetened yogurt, start tasting noticeably sweeter than they did before, simply because your baseline for sweet has recalibrated downward. This is the part almost nobody expects. You haven't just removed sugar. You've reset the sensitivity of your own perception. The world, quite literally, tastes different to you now. Not because the food changed, but because your nervous system's calibration did. Beyond the brain, your body undergoes changes too. Studies on sugar reduction consistently show improvements in inflammatory markers within just a few weeks, since chronic high sugar intake is linked to low-grade systemic inflammation. Insulin sensitivity often improves as well, meaning your cells become more efficient at responding to the insulin your body produces, a shift with implications for long-term metabolic health, not just how you feel day to day. Energy levels, somewhat counterintuitively, tend to stabilize rather than crash. This surprises people who assume sugar equals energy. In reality, the sharp glucose spikes and subsequent crashes caused by regular sugar intake create an artificial energy roller coaster. Remove the spikes, and many people report steadier, more consistent energy throughout the day once the initial withdrawal period passes. So here's the uncomfortable question underneath all of this. If quitting sugar produces symptoms this specific, this physiologically real, backed by dopamine changes, blood sugar swings, and measurable shifts in brain activation patterns, what does that tell you about the version of yourself who eats sugar every single day without a second thought? It suggests that a meaningful part of your daily craving for something sweet isn't really about hunger or even taste. It's a system your brain built gradually, meal by meal, treat by treat, quietly training itself to expect a reward it now insists on receiving. You didn't choose this calibration consciously. It happened to you, one small reinforcement at a time, until it felt like simple preference instead of what it actually is. A learned dependency running quietly in the background of your everyday life. Which means the version of you who finally makes it past that 2-week mark isn't just eating differently, technically, on paper. You're tasting a genuinely different world, running on a nervous system that's been quietly recalibrated back toward its original baseline. Before years of steady daily reinforcement convinced it that sweetness needed to be a constant background presence instead of an occasional, genuinely earned pleasure. And there's something worth sitting with in that. The habits that feel most like just who you are, the foods you reach for without thinking, the cravings that feel like personality rather than programming are often exactly this. Not fixed, not innate, just deeply, repeatedly reinforced, to the point where the reinforcement itself became invisible to you. You started this imagining one simple decision, made tomorrow morning over a single cup of coffee. It turns out that decision reaches all the way down into your dopamine receptors, your blood sugar regulation, even the raw physical sensitivity of your taste buds. Not because sugar is some uniquely evil substance lurking in your kitchen, because your brain, like it does with almost everything you repeat often enough, quietly decided this was worth wanting, long before you ever consciously agreed to that arrangement.